musicianship, above technique, or what's primary, what's secondary?
It's all primary. And the thing is, it has to be well balanced. The criteria would be very easy for me. Sometimes not easy to judge because maybe more than one person fits that description. But the criteria for me is, would I pay to go hear this person, or would I want him or her? Would I want to hear him or her again?
Did they capture?
So to do that, of course, you need to have craftsmanship, and you have to be able to navigate around the difficulties of the keyboard. You have to conquer the technical difficulties, for sure. That's part of being professional. But then that's just the starting point. If you begin and end with technique and make no music, I absolutely have no interest. If sometimes I see that you're striving to make music, even if you do things that I don't agree with, but still are compelling, and still I can think, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I should reconsider, or not reconsider, but that angle, that way of approaching that works as well. Then you make me think. Then I like that, and I like this component. I like this component, the heart and the brain, and the hands have to work. You have to have everything. If you are weak in one element, then you have to strengthen that until you have this harmoniously combination of all factors, and that's what makes a good musician. It goes beyond the technical abilities, obviously.
Do you pay a lot of attention to the posture, or is that irrelevant as far as the
I know. I don't, because some people can sit in very weird ways, and if I close my eyes and they still sound all right, then that works for them. Everybody is different. Physiologically, we're all different. There are some principles in general. I can tell you, when people come and play like this, I already say, that's not going to be. Because when the wrists are so high, you cannot really go into the keys, and the sound suffers. But, if you sit very high, very low, very far, very close, that is, personal. I only think it should matter what it sounds like.
For a competition like the Van Cliburn, were you very nervous, and if so?
You bet. You bet. How can you not be?
How do you cope with your nerves, when you?
That's a different story. I don't know how you do it. It's just you do it, and you hope it works. There is no formula. But I mean, let me tell you this. The Cliburn is nerve-wracking for many a reason. It's because if you do well in it, it could change your life. So there is a lot at stake. But it's beyond that. It's just the way it's organized. It's more like a Hollywood event. You have paparazzi following you, and as a classical musician, you're never going to have that in your life. But just at the Cliburn, you have a filming crew following you everywhere. So it's difficult to find time to practice. It's difficult to find time to sleep. They put press conferences at 8:30 in the morning, and I hate that because you need your sleep. You need to practice, and you need to be able to wake up, refreshed. And so and then plus when I did the Cliburn, I was still living in Italy. Or actually, I just moved to the United States, but I come from Italy, and so I was jet-lagged, and I couldn't sleep at night. I needed to wake up much later in the morning, never could. So I went through the entire competition without being able to sleep, basically. It was stressful for that reason, particularly. And then you have to play well. You have to play a large amount of music, and you have to be solid because you need to be. But then that's just a starting point. Then you have to show your personality, show that you are a musician, not just a typewriter, because of those there are so many. And so it's difficult. But how do you cope with it? The experience that you have, if you get there, usually you've already played in many places, you've already performed a lot, or participated in several competitions. And that helps you because it builds up your confidence that you can do it. And then also the other thing, two things that I love as mental approach to a competition, it is not a competition. It's a set of performances. You cannot compete with other people. You can only compete with yourself to do better, to do your best. If you do that, then you have to accept whatever result comes out. I've been in competitions where I thought I played super well and I didn't win. And I've been in competitions where I thought I played so-so and I won. So it's just so unpredictable because it's not up to you, and the parameters that the judges use are so tied up with their own taste and their own backgrounds. So the important thing is not to be devastated if you don't win, because it's not a reflection of who you are. It's just a step you need to take for the career, and you need to do your best. And if you do your best, you can, be happy. Then whatever happens, happens. If you don't play your best, then you have some regrets. That's all.
No, they do one collaborative competition for juniors.
Yes,
now,
it's
so
starting about
14,
now, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Catherine, you can think about it. You guys go for it.
Yeah, I'm going this.
You're going
next,
now?
Or next, this weekend.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Then, good luck.
Thank you.
We had another Misha who won the junior, the intermediate. And he's also going. Yeah, that's great. So two people from the San Jose area. We'll be rooting for you then.
Thank you.
Yes.
A small question. Everybody prepared for the competition their best, and they take best edition of classical music. And if contestant performing not exactly what is written, for example, a Bible, do you consider it as a minus, or it is just interpretation different? Like one contest played this E-flat major sonata by Haydn, and she played tram tram tra tram tram tra. It is not written in the music.
True.
Do you consider it?
Personally, it bothers me. But the vote is a reflection of all the judges voting. So it's not, and people think differently. I mean, I am not at the level of strictness with that as other people are. I think that there needs to be some room for interpretation. But when you go blatantly and clearly against what's so carefully written by the composer. So for instance, there are composers who are very meticulous in their writing. And the classical composers were, like Beethoven especially, he would erase and rewrite, correct and change until he arrived at what he wanted. So I think that the only room for interpretation is the relativity of the tempi and the relativity of the dynamics and then the structure and the inner motion of the music. But you cannot go against the dynamics, against the phrasing markings and all of that. And Haydn is similar, and especially you cannot change the pedals just because they were playing on different instruments. Because on their pianos it was much easier to keep long pedals because the sound was smaller. And on our pianos it's much more difficult, but it's still possible. You just have to find the right sound. But you cannot, if Waldstein third movement, you need to have both the tonic and the dominant in the same pedal. You must keep both. Haydn writes open pedal in Sonata Hoboken 50, C major. You have to keep the pedal down, even if it sounds dissonant. You just find the right sound. Some people change the pedal, and personally it bothers me. But some of my colleagues are not bothered by it. So it depends, the vote you have to accept. Because it's different schools of thought. Yeah.
Maybe it's a separate, special way to take open pedal. Maybe.
Yeah, quarter of the pedal. You don't push it all the way down,
Yeah,
and depends on the sound. Sure. But what I mean is the meshing of different harmonies.
Is tapping on the pedal was considered like holding it? Sometimes if you hear that messy sound acoustically, when you tap on it, so just fine as a master of the right amount of pedaling, or you have to hold that pedal behind that section that didn't seem.
You can fluctuate it a little bit, but you don't release it so that it doesn't dry up and it doesn't lose the meshing of the harmonies. The amount, but you have to have also the right sound to keep the long pedal, because if you have a very sharp attack, then the sound is gonna build up too much, and then it's difficult to keep the same
It's
pedal.
the craftsmanship of doing it with all the markings.
Yeah, it's both, from the fingers and the feet. And it doesn't need to be all the way down, and it doesn't need to stay where it is. It can fluctuate. Like this is the pedal, you push it down, and you can go like this. But you never release it, never change it.
It's just degrees in effect.
Yeah. And I also personally do, when it builds up too much and I need to change the pedal, then all of a sudden I use finger pedaling, and I change the pedal and people don't know I'm changing it. Because I'm holding those notes, like, even though they're not supposed to be held, but I can hold 4 or 5 notes, and then it still sounds wet, not dry, and then I can put the pedal back down, and then, you know what I mean? So there is a lot of tricks, but
Somebody suggested in Tempest Beethoven Sonata, there's a section where you hold
the
pedal.
recitativo.
Yeah. To put
Tonal pedal. It could work, but I don't think it's necessary. I personally, but again, see, I would have to hear it and see how it works, but I don't think it's necessary. You can just keep the right pedal down. Yeah.
You were in love with the music when you were a child. How did you start?
Well, I would say so, because my parents are not musicians. There is no one in my family actually who plays any instrument. And it was by chance, it was a television show actually, not a television broadcast. We're talking when I was three and a half. This television broadcast, my parents were just changing the channels, and there was this piano concerto. I don't know who the pianist was. I don't know which orchestra. I actually don't even remember this. My mother told me. And apparently I was a very restless child, and then I froze when I heard and saw, and it was the first time I heard this type of music. They tell me that already when I was like 2 years old, I sang a lot of songs, but it was the pop songs of the time, what my parents listened to. So all of a sudden I hear this music, and I hear the sound of the piano and then the strings, etc. And apparently they tried to change the channel, and I started screaming for them not to. So they had to go back to it, and then I watched the whole thing. And then I started moving my fingers like on nothing or on furniture or something. And then I asked for a piano. And I had no idea that pianos are expensive and so forth. So my parents, said maybe we'll buy a toy, a keyboard, and that's what they gave me first. And I taught myself how to play some things by ear. And by this time, then I was 4 years old. And then they said maybe there is something to this. Maybe we should find some teachers. They knew absolutely nothing about this. So they asked some friends, and a friend of a friend was a teacher. And so I went to this teacher, and I started taking lessons. And again, I was about 4 years old, and then I just continued from there. But I always loved it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much did you study?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe.
I have a low-level question actually. So for young children to play piano, a lot of times they don't really understand the meaning of the music. So sometimes they play, like maybe even sometimes they have the skills, but they play kind of just hitting keys with no feelings. So what do you think can help them?
Every human being has feelings.
Right.
Every human being, even at that age, can draw on the experience of life. They experience pain, sadness, happiness, joy. They have those emotions. We all do. So if they have a good teacher will be able to explain to them what it means and to sit down and demonstrate to them how it feels. And if they have any talent, they will be able to do it. If they don't, then there's something maybe that doesn't work. Maybe not. You have to. I know it sounds harsh, but we have to accept the fact that not everybody has talent. Not everybody has talent in the same degree. It's sad, but it's not a democracy.
Like a young children play a piece and compare with like a 8-year-old compare with an 18 years old. They understand a certain piece probably differently.
They're 18 years old.
Yeah, 18 and 8 compare with the.
But that is obvious. That is normal. That is okay. That is part of life. I mean, if you play Rachmaninoff and you are 10 years old, there is only so much you can get. But it's okay. If you're already exploring, already trying, maybe you cannot get as much as when you are 18, but it's a journey. So it's fine. But if you're attempting to actually find something in the music is important. And then the other thing is not to study just piano, but also do theory, to understand the language, the harmony, and to do it in a fun and interesting way, not pedantic way. So because children will be completely put off. I mean, most of them. But when I was 4 and I started taking lessons, I was very lucky. This could be controversial, but my teacher was not a good pianist. And that was an excellent thing. He was actually not a professional pianist. He was a self-taught pianist, and he was a composer, and he knew theory extremely well. And he could play several instruments, and he could teach several instruments, but he was not a performer on any of them. So he stayed away from teaching how to hit the keys, how to position my hand, how to do this and how to do that. And I found that by myself. And he focused exclusively from the beginning on music and understanding the language. And I actually started studying the theory, even with difficult terminology, the physics of the sound, already when I was very, very, very young. I think that is very important,